It's election year in Germany, but in Erfurt in the state of Thüringen, a lot of people don't seem that interested. Only 56% of them bothered voting in the state elections 3 weeks ago. Back in the days of communism, they had no choice. These days, it's entirely up to them.
I'm not interested, not at all. What's the point? It's a waste of time. Rather stay home and watch TV. Doesn't make any difference. All the parties are out of touch with the people.
Others disagree. A mixed bag of artists, entrepreneurs, and students have founded an initiative designed to get people out of their armchairs and into the polling stations.
As we saw during the European elections and the last federal elections here in Germany, voter interest is waning steadily, and that's bad news for democracy.
So dozens of self-appointed ambassadors for democracy are now on the streets trying to improve matters. Berlin's Mayor Klaus Wowereit supports the project, even though these volunteer ambassadors, like Christiane Köster, aren't campaigning for specific parties. They just want people to vote.
This is something I'm more than happy to do. Luckily, I'm self-employed, so I can work when I want to. So I've taken a whole month off to work for the Pro-Dialogue campaign. My job is to tell people how important it is that they vote.
Jeanette is actually in Berlin on holiday, but she's just admitted that she doesn't vote, mainly because she usually forgets. After a 10-minute lecture from a Pro-Dialogue ambassador, she starts to see the error of her ways.
I don't think a conversation like this is going to change people, but it did make me think, and that's a step in the right direction.
That's exactly what the volunteers want to hear, and feeling that they're making progress, they head off in search of their next quarry. Like in Erfurt, voter turnout in Berlin has been declining, for much the same reason.
If none of the parties appeal to me, I don't vote, and none of them appeal to me.
I'll vote if I'm here.
I'll vote, but I don't know for who, and I'm sure I'll mess it up somehow.
The volunteers have their work cut out for them. They're planning on visiting all 16 German states. Christiane Köster and her dog Höni are already on their way to their next destination. Current surveys show that over 13 million eligible voters are considering staying home. And then there are those who might just forget.
We've noticed that some people just don't get around to it because something comes up. It's not even deliberate. In the past, that wouldn't have happened because the social pressure to vote was greater. It was woven into the fabric of society. Communities were more close-knit, so people would remind one another that it was election day and that they had to go and vote.
West Germany's first federal elections after the Second World War were held in 1949. Voter turnout climbed steadily in subsequent decades, reaching over 90% by the 1970s. But times have changed.
It poses a problem of legitimacy for the parties that are voted in. If only 40 or 30% of the electorate, or even less, have actually taken part in the vote.
Back in Erfurt, Christiane Köster and her team are having a hard time convincing locals their vote matters. No one seems to care.
Who would I vote for? It's tough. Very tough.
In East Germany, we had to vote. Now we can choose. We won't be voting. We're very interested in politics, but we get the impression that politicians make a lot of promises, and they don't keep any of them.
To begin with, Christiane Köster thought she just had to remind people to vote. She wasn't expecting people to be so disinterested. But at least there's been one positive surprise.
I've been really struck by how open-minded the younger generation is. They say they really want to change things in Germany, and that means they'll be voting. And amazingly, they also know exactly who they'll vote for, unlike the generation of 30 or 35-year-olds, who tend to say they really believe in democracy, but that they don't trust the politicians anymore.
Christiane Köster will be traveling from city to city, working hard before September the 27th. She firmly believes people need to vote if democracy is going to work, and she wants to convince others she's right.